Let's pause there for a moment because I want to go to Dimitris. Because in all of this, there's humanity. There are human beings. There are people on the move. And obviously what's happened in Syria is remarkable and could ease the pressure on Turkey particularly. But when you think back to your work as the Commissioner on migration and movement, what do you think we have to take away from this? Is there a stability and clarity emerging? Is there? Which allows people to think, maybe I'm safe where I am? Or are we facing even increasing levels of movement, not least because of climate change and the difficulties for farmers, for everyone, to deal with higher temperatures, less rainfall, all the things which I don't need to list here. What's your assessment of what's coming down the track? Not in 10 or 20 years, but 10 or 20 months, maybe.
Exactly. First of all, I would like to express my thanks for being here to discover this part of the world. It's my very first time, and I believe that the events like this, Mr. Talabani, will help Slemani to come back on the track and on the map, because most of the Europeans do not know where Slemani is located. Coming to your question, let me start by telling you that this big issue of migration will be with us for many, many decades. Right now we are here in Slemani, more than 450 million people around the world are on the move. And the global community was never prepared for that. Some initiatives had been taken, but the results are very, very poor. Given this climate of uncertainty today, which has to do with the fact that the whole world is getting reshaped, I'm afraid that we are going to be confronted with huge problems. You mentioned countries in the region before. Maybe you know that my good friend Ahmed knows that Turkey right now is hosting more than 5 million refugees. I don't want to use the word burden, but I can understand how Turkey is feeling. And this should be recognized by all of us. When I was European Commissioner for Migration...
And Egypt is hosting 7 million as well.
It's 7 now. And it's going to be more in the future, I'm afraid, because there are no solutions by the international community. Talking about the European Union. The European Union was taken by surprise in the year 2015 and had no idea of how to cope with this problem. I was the lucky one, because it was my responsibility, to start building from scratch both the migration policy and strategy of Europe and the security issue, which was also on the top. And talking about security, I can tell you that we are in a region that has suffered a lot by terrorism in the past. ISIS has been defeated on the ground, but the roots are still there in the prisons and in ungoverned regions of this part of the world. So, yes, it is migration. It has to be tackled. The international community did not do a lot. I remember I had asked the Secretary General of the United Nations at the time to convene an extraordinary assembly in the United Nations. They gathered there, leaders from all down there, fantastic rhetorics, but nothing was done. These are two aspects of the problems that the humanity is confronted today. But for me, the most important one has to do with the fact that the world is getting reshaped. New zones of influence have started being created around the world, and new stakeholders have started playing their role. Are we prepared for that? You mentioned before Mr. Trump's policy. Let's wait and see when the sand will settle, because we still live in very uncertain conditions. You see what's happening in Ukraine right now. Let's hope that today's call between Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin will give some results. But it was explained before what happened just 2 days in Istanbul. I'm very much concerned, because I believe that our generation will leave behind ashes if we do not take responsibilities right now at all levels, national, regional, and global. You know, we are the unique generation in mankind's history in Europe that we have not lived a war, and we take it for granted. We believe that we shall always be like this. It's not the case. You see how things have changed, even in Europe. And Europe right now is very weak. Europe cannot play its role as it was defined by the forefathers of Europe 50, 60 years ago. Unfortunately, even the Europe European project is vanishing. And if Europe reverts to its past, it will be the biggest tragedy of all times. So it's a huge responsibility by the European leadership at national and at the European level to take initiatives and start thinking historically for their role.
Let me just put to you what President Pastrana said. The world is becoming more fragile, more fragmented, and more polarized. Do you agree?
I fully agree with that.
Do you all agree with that?
Well, you asked me if I agree. I agree with that because I say it in front of my eyes. And we have lived fantastic experience during the last years, and we have done nothing. We have faced this reality in a fatalist way. But if you do that, history will punish you.
Dimitris, your view, particularly on Iran.
Let me start by telling you that sanctions were never effective in our modern history. Dialogue and diplomacy can play a role, but many mistakes have happened during the last 30 years. I remember I was Minister of Foreign Affairs when the decision was made in Brussels to encourage and empower the so-called Arab Spring. I want to be frank with you. It was a big mistake. And I understand that Tony Blair has already recognized because he was part of it at that time. Because this is what led to the destabilization of the region. So, coming to Middle East now, I believe that the dialogue, as Mr. D'Alema said, between the Iranians and the Saudis can produce fruitful results. It has to be encouraged also by the international public opinion. Regarding now the European Union, the days when Mr. D'Alema was Prime Minister of Italy were different, Mr. D'Alema. The European Union was speaking with one voice. Now there are 27 voices, especially in the field of international relations. So the European Union is weak. Who is powerful now? Mr. Trump. And I will tell you why. Because we don't know what will be the outcome of his policy, but the fact that he is not a politician and his policy is not dictated by the so-called deep system might lead to some results. But we have to wait and see. See what's happening in Ukraine and what will happen in the Middle East. So I don't say that I'm optimistic, but still curious to see what will be the outcome of that. Otherwise, we shall revert to the past.
Let me ask both Massimo and Dimitris in our final 4 minutes. Do you have confidence in the political class to accept and understand the enormity of change that's underway, as President Pastrana has laid out, polarizing, fragmentizing as well? In other words, tearing apart much of what we take for granted as a source of stability. Dimitris?
The political class, not only in Europe but across the world, is in deep crisis because the public opinion has started putting in doubt its role, especially of what we are living today. They demand solutions, but is the political class very powerful today to make this kind of decisions? We have wise leaders, no doubt about it, all around the world, but
are they imaginative enough to understand?
Exactly. You need imagination and bold decisions without taking into consideration the political cost of their decisions. Because what a politician is thinking today and is doing today will have an impact on their societies in the long run. If they are waiting to be applauded today, they lose everything. They are prisoners of the moment, and their countries and the nations lose the century.